Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to give you a bit of a brief insight. I started to learn class 1 a few months ago. I've been driving them now 2 months, 3 months. And what I thought was there seems to be no help out there available to support new past drivers in how to actually reverse. I mean, a lot of the old timers I've spoken to have said to me, you know, don't worry, it'll come, or it's all down to the line that you follow. Now, as a new past driver, looking like pretty much a fool trying to reverse when you've no idea, because let's face it, the test doesn't really set you up for being able to reverse onto bays. It doesn't set you up for reversing round corners, and it doesn't help you in any way on blindside reversing. It's just a standard procedure that you follow exactly to the letter. But then to some degree, most reversing is a standard procedure that you follow. There is differences obviously in a lot of them. I'm not professing to be an expert, but what I thought is, as I'm going through the process of reversing, I'd pass on what I learned, you know, through my mistakes, and obviously try to help and support people out there and show them roughly, you know, what I've learned and what's helped me along the way. I'm not saying that that's the right way, but if it works for me, I can pass that on. You can try it and give it a go yourself. We've got my trusty toy truck here. I'm going to use for an example to try and show you. It's not the best way of showing you really, but it's even harder to try and show you, you know, actually on the road. So I'll try and give you some pointers as we go along for reversing. We'll start with as you'd actually reverse in a straight line back, and what I learned from obviously reversing back straight, the mistakes and the easiest way to do it that I've found. Reversing back straight is really pretty straightforward. What you need to bear in mind is, I mean, some people will tell you to use half a turn. What I found was if you only use quarter of a turn as you're reversing just in a nice straight line, you'll not tend to overcorrect, and you'll also stop you being in a position where your headboard will kick out so that your mirrors, you can't see what's happening here, and obviously vice versa. We're obviously using a truck here and presuming that it's right-hand drive for the UK. If your headboard's kicked out too far, you've started pushing and it keeps going, obviously, your back end swings around, you're completely blind there, and you're completely blind here unless you move your mirrors out. So what you'll tend to do then is you'll push your back end out and you've gone way out. So what you should do is, if you use just quarter of a turn each time to try and correct, then instead of snaking around, which is what I tended to do when I first started, I'd use half a turn or more. I'd be doing this all the time, and what happened is as I got to there, I'm completely blind over here as to what's happening. I can see what's happening here, but I don't know what's going off here. I'd bring that round. This would bring the front end of my truck way too far over to whatever was on this side. So quite simply, just quarter of a turn, let it run out, bring it back, quarter of a turn, let it run out, bring it back. If you do that, then you can see both sides, you can see what you're doing, you're not blind, and you don't have to panic either side. So that's obviously the easiest way of reversing straight back into a nice straight bay. Right, I'm going to give you an insight into reversing, obviously what I've learned up to now. When you're coming in, assess the bay. So take your time, come in. There's no harm in taking your time with anything. You can take as much time as you want. If people are getting annoyed with you, you're holding them up, you can just pull aside, let them go by, they can carry on what they're doing. If somebody's getting anxious and annoyed with you, don't let it phase or panic you. This is when you'll make mistakes. I know it sounds easy to say so, and everybody tells you not to. You'll tend to find the old timers that have been driving a long time, they just take the time with everything, and they're not bothered and they're not phased. If you start rushing, you start panicking, you'll end up hitting something, and they'll be the first people to laugh at you. What you've got to remember is they were once new drivers, so they should have the patience, but they probably won't because they'll be in a rush. What I've always found as well is, if you're struggling, ask for some help. Just ask. Most drivers will be happy to sit in the cab and watch you struggle. But if you get out and ask them, there's nothing that makes them happier than to come out and help and show you then that, you know, the fountain of knowledge that they've acquired over the years. And most of them will help you and give you advice. Most of the advice usually is "it'll come," which doesn't really help much at all. I sort of see what they mean now. There's no real way of teaching because every scenario is different, but the pattern does follow the same principle on most counts. So be patient, it will come, but I'll try and show you some tips and advice that I've learned up to now to help get you through it. So we'll start off now. As you come in, be looking at obviously all the bays along here. We're going to be going into this bay here. So what we want to do, we want to bring the traction trailer in line with the bay, straight. If there's a container there or a trailer and no cab on the front, like that, obviously it'd be up to there. So that'd be the point of which you could run alongside. If it had the cab on the front or the unit there, you'd be running along there. So what we're going to assume here is there's just trailers on here. So come in and give yourself around about 4 or 5 foot gap with whatever's on these bays. If there's nothing on the bays, then you could quite simply come round like that and then just make it nice and easy for yourself, you know, to go straight onto the bay like that. But we're going to assume that there's just basically trailers here, here and here. So we bring it alongside here and give ourselves 4 or 5 foot gap. We look at the space that we're going into, we check there's nothing obscuring either side, like trays, pallets or anything that they've shoved down. Bring it alongside like that. And then I usually pass 1.5 to 2 bays along and then start my turn round like that. I then bring it out straight and then put some kick in it. I then turn the steering wheel the opposite lock to start my turn. Bring it back like that. Put more and more turn on. And what I always say is I try and do is these 3 wheels, we're assuming we're using a tri-trailer here, 3 axles. Always try and keep here these 3 wheels this side or on the line. As soon as you start going over the line, this end is going to hit whatever's here. So always those wheels should bring themselves round. You can see perfectly clearly what's happening here with trailers or a cab, so you've got no worries, but you cannot see anything here. You can get out at any point and check. There is no harm whatsoever in getting out and checking. It's far better to check 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 times than it is to run into something. So always take your time and get out and check. I know you might look foolish, but trust me, you'll look even more foolish if you hit something. They'll be the first people laughing at you, the ones that were laughing at you, obviously taking your time to reverse in. We're all new once, we'll all get there. Just take your time. So you want these 3 wheels here to always stay on that line. And then as you bring it back, straighten out. What I tend to do is just put a very, very gentle turn on and keep these wheels pushed right over. And then you can quite simply just trim it out, always go forward, and then back into the bay like that. So there's no harm in being closer there, and even being out, you can always correct forward and then shove it back without the risk, because you know there's tight an angle coming round there as you are obviously going from like that. So just bear that in mind. Keep yourself as close to this side, but don't get too close, because obviously if you're too close like that, your trailer's going to want to hit here. So bring it round nice and tight there, like that, and then straight back. Sounds easy, you've just got to practice. But like I say, always follow the advice of these wheels here. Always keep these wheels on or just outside the line. Never let these wheels go like that, because look how close you are to this line. Always keep it there. And keep this back wheel running round, and then these wheels here will always be. Bearing in mind your pivot point's your middle axle. Try to keep that one over if I were you. And then bring it round like that. And then, but if you don't correct it soon enough, obviously it'll hit.